Hello everyone, my name is Yash and today I welcome you back to my YouTube channel Krazy Cloud. This is the 12th video of LWC learning series, and if you haven't watched the previous videos yet, I'll give the link in the description box below. You can go and watch them. So in this video we'll be discussing about the life cycle hooks of LWC. What are the life cycle hooks of a lightning web component? So without getting any delay, let's get started. So we know that as a human we do have a life cycle, right? Life cycle basically involves the steps from creation to the uh, death, right? So as a human we do have some life cycle steps, which is like first we get born, then our childhood, right? Then we do have adulthood, then we have old age, and finally here death, right? So this is a life cycle. These are the life cycle methods which every human need to face, if which every human will go through, right? The same way we have some life cycle hooks in LWC as well, right? So life cycle hooks are nothing but some methods which will automatically gets called whenever a lightning web component gets created or inserted into a DOM or gets disconnected or suppose removed from the DOM, right? So first let's understand what is a DOM. DOM is nothing but it uh, stands for document object model, right? So suppose this box is a DOM, right? So whenever we create an HTML page, or suppose whenever we open a web page, the browser automatically creates a tree, right? Which consists of many multiple nodes, right? So that is known as that tree is known as the DOM, right? So whenever we create our LWC component, right? After creating the LWC component and rendering the LWC component, we every LWC component will go through some phases, and those phases will be known as the life cycle hooks of LWC. So here we have 5 to 6 life cycle hooks, which start from constructor. Then we have connected callback. Let's say, let me write them here. First, we have constructor. So constructor gets called onto the very first step, and inside the constructor method we have to write one line which is super, correct? So this is the first method which gets called whenever we create, or whenever we create the LWC component. Then after constructor we have connected callback, right? Connected callback gets called whenever we create our LWC component, whenever the LWC component gets inserted into the DOM, right? Then we have render method. Render method gets called whenever the component decides that which HTML file we need to show, right? So basically render method overrides the default rendering functionality. So whenever we say render, it means that whenever you load the component, which HTML file the browser should display, it gets decided into the render method. Then we have rendered callback. So rendered callback method gets called whenever the component successfully renders one HTML file, right? So suppose in this render method, we have decided that we need to show the first HTML file. In one LWC, let me tell you one thing. In one Lightning Web Component, we can create multiple HTML files. Correct? So suppose this is HTML1, then we have HTML2, then we have HTML3. So one LWC component can have multiple HTML files. So in render method, we decide that which HTML file we need to show. So after successfully rendering the web page, rendered callback method will get called. Correct? After rendered callback, we do have disconnected callback, disconnected callback, and disconnected callback is nothing but you can consider it as a death. So whenever the LWC component will get removed from the DOM, disconnected callback will automatically get called. After disconnected callback, we have one error callback. Error callback. Error callback basically accepts two parameters. First one is, just a second. Error callback accepts two parameters. First one is error and another one is stack. So error callback is used whenever suppose our component throws an error while loading, right? Suppose we got some error while loading or while inserting the component into the DOM, then error callback will automatically get called, and it will show the user what is the error, right, onto the UI automatically. So this is how the lifecycle hook of LWC works. Let me tell you one more thing. These methods always flow from always go from parent component to child component. Only rendered callback method is a method which flows from child to parent. Else every method goes from parent to child. Uh, I know if you don't know what is parent and child component, don't worry. I'll explain these the concept of parent and child into the next video. For now, you just understand that every method flows from parent to child, but only rendered callback method is a method which flows from child to parent. Correct? Let's understand this practically. So here I have created one LWC component which is lifecycle hooks. It is doing nothing. Let me do one thing. Let me comment it. And so here, what I have done, I have written all the methods which comes under the lifecycle hook in our JavaScript file. So see, the first one is constructor. As we know that the first line of the constructor method should always be super. Correct? It should be here. It is a must line, right? You have to write it always as a first line of a constructor. Then we have put some logs, then connected callback here, then render, then rendered callback, then disconnected callback and error callback. So what we'll do now, we'll just use this component onto our lightning page and see what happens. So here I have already dragged this component onto the lightning page from the app builder, and you can see that first the constructor is getting called. Correct? Here this is our lifecycle example. Correct? So whenever this component will get loaded, automatically these methods will get called. So first one is the constructor, then connected callback, then render, and then rendered callback. If you see here, in render method, we are returning the main template. we have already discussed that render method is used to decide which component, which HTML web page you want to display, right? So here I want to display the main template. What is the main template? I have imported this main template from this LWC, correct? So in this LWC, in this lifecycle, in this lifecycle hooks LWC, I currently have only one HTML file, right? If I create one more HTML file, then I have to import that file as well here, right? And then we can decide which file you need to show. So currently we have only one file, and I'm just returning this main template. And after successfully rendering the template, the rendered callback will automatically gets called. So if you see here, after render, we have rendered callback, correct? And if you notice here, disconnected callback and error callback didn't got called. Why? Because disconnected callback only gets called whenever the component is removed from the DOM. So here we haven't removed this component yet. It is still visible to us, right? So, and error callback gets called whenever whenever any error comes into the component. So here we do not have any error. That's why we this error callback is not getting called. Correct. So now let's understand. Let's create one child component of this lifecycle hooks. I have created the lifecycle hooks child component here. Correct. And in this component, I have again pasted all the constructor, all the lifecycle methods to see the flow, right? So now what I have done is, let's understand one thing. Okay. So what it will do, here I have created one button show child. So whenever I click this button, the handle click method will get called. And in handle click, what I am doing is I'm just you know show child equals to show not show child. What it will do, if the current value of show child is true, it will make it false, and if the current value of show child is false, it will make it true, right? So show child is nothing but a boolean variable, and if show child is true, I'm just using the child component here. This is how we embed one component into another component, right? So here the lifecycle hook is the parent component, and lifecycle hook's child, this is the child component, correct? So how can we make it like how can we use any other component in another component? So there is a camel case character method we need to follow, right? So if you notice here in this lifecycle hooks child name, the C is capital, H is capital, C is capital. So every capital letter will get what say will get replaced from with hyphen and the small character. If you notice here, I have to use any component into another component, you need to start it with C hyphen, then the name of the component. So life, then we have another C with capital, like capital C. It will get replaced with hyphen small c, then hyphen small h, then hyphen small c. So this is how it works, correct? So whenever show child property gets true, it will show the child component. And in child component, I have written all the lifecycle hook methods. So let's refresh this component and see what happens. See, we do have show child property here. If you notice, we have constructor. connected callback, render, and rendered callback of parent component, because child is, we haven't showed the child here, right? Let me clear the logs, and when I'll click the show child, it will just call all the methods from the child component. See, first render of the parent component, correct? Then we have child constructor, child up now. After render function of the parent component, it will redirect all the execution to the child component, and from child component again the constructor first, then connected callback, then the uh, rendered callback of child, and then rendered callback of parent, correct? uh, we have already discussed that rendered callback is the only property, only method which flows from child to parent. That's why first we have child rendered callback and then parent rendered callback. Else every function flows from parent to child. Now, if I click show child again, what it will do, it will just make this property show child to false, and it will hide, or let's say it will remove this child component from the parent component, and the disconnected callback of the child component will get called. If I click this one more time, if you notice here, the child component got disconnected from the parent, and that's why child disconnected callback got called, correct? So this is how lifecycle hook works. Let me do one thing. In the rendered callback, I'm just throwing one error, custom error, just to show you how the error callback works. We know that error callback accepts two parameter. One is error and another one is stack trace. Basically, uh, it have all the messages and every line number, message, and everything into this, right? Stack. So after the successful rendered callback will get called and it will throw an error. See, message is custom error, correct? So this is how error callback and every lifecycle hook works. So let me comment it again, deploy. So if you have any doubt regarding this lifecycle hooks, you can always ping me on LinkedIn, or you can ask me uh, to explain more on this topic below the comment section, like into the comment section. So see you in the next video.